The hall was filled with music, laughter, and the promise of forever. A bride ready to heal from years of loss. A groom admired by everyone in the city, but when an uninvited guest walked in begging for food, the celebration took a turn no one expected. Whispers turned to gasps, and beneath the polished smiles, something dangerous began to surface. Because not every savior is what they seem, and not every stranger is a stranger. One wedding, one secret, and a revelation that will leave you questioning everything. Welcome to the Judge Stories. If you love gripping tales with shocking twists, you're in the right place. Please subscribe to help us grow, and tell us in the comments which country you're watching from. The chandeliers glittered like 1,000 captured stars, throwing light across the grand hotel hall. Rows of satin-draped chairs gleamed white and gold, flower arches curled like crowns above the aisle, and the air carried the delicate blend of roses and expensive perfume. Lagos had not seen a wedding this extravagant in months, and whispers ran through the guests. The daughter of the late Chief Bola was marrying Kunle, the philanthropist everyone adored. Adana sat in her bridal suite moments before the procession, the weight of her lace gown pressing against her shoulders. She touched the edge of her veil and glanced at her reflection. Her cocoa-toned skin glowed under the soft lighting, her hair swept into a sleek bun that peeked beneath the Jiel-inspired veil. Around her, bridesmaids adjusted lavender dresses and giggled nervously, but Adana's thoughts drifted. Papa should have been here to see this day. She pushed away the sting of grief. It had been 5 years since his car plunged into the lagoon from the third mainland bridge, 5 years since a coffin was lowered without his body. Kunle, meanwhile, moved through the hall in his white tailored suit, a champagne tie knotted neatly at his throat. Guests rose to shake his hand, their words dripping with admiration. He wore the same practiced smile he had perfected over years, warm, polished, untouchable. Yet when his eyes shifted away, the corners of his mouth hardened and his jaw twitched as though restraining something volatile. Music swelled as the ceremony began. The bridal train glided down the aisle, lavender against marble. The crowd hushed in reverence. Adana followed, her veil catching light like spun glass. She caught Kunle's gaze waiting at the altar. For a fleeting moment, hope stirred in her chest. Perhaps this union, this day, would bring healing where there had been only loss. But outside the hall, unnoticed by the guests, another figure approached. Dust clung to his bare feet, and his torn shirt hung loose against a frame too thin for its height. His beard was unkempt, his eyes clouded with years of wandering. In his trembling hand, he clutched a cracked plastic cup. Hunger etched lines across his face as he stumbled toward the gates, murmuring only one plea: please, food. Inside, vows were about to be spoken. Outside, destiny was about to interrupt. The gates of the hotel stood tall, draped in ribbons and guarded by men in black suits. Cars slid in and out, their polished surfaces reflecting the afternoon sun. Guests stepped out in dazzling lace and oke, carrying themselves with the pride of wealth and status. Few noticed the gaunt figure weaving through the crowd until his cracked voice rose above the music. Please, a little food. Heads turned. A beggar, barefoot and dust-stained, clutched his cup with shaking hands. His beard was streaked with gray, his shirt torn at the shoulders. Gasps rippled through the gathering. Some frowned, others hissed, and a few reached instinctively for their phones to capture the scene. A man so ragged had no business here, not on this day of all days. One of the guards stepped forward, barking, "Move away, old man!" He shoved the beggar lightly, but the man staggered, too weak to resist. Still, he lifted his eyes once sharp, now dimmed by years of struggle, and repeated in a cracked whisper, "Please, food." Inside the hall, Adana's vows were moments away. Kunle, standing at the altar, heard the commotion through the open doors. His jaw tightened. Nothing could ruin this carefully constructed image. Not today. With a forced smile to the guests, he excused himself. "Give me a moment," he said, his voice honey smooth. He strode toward the gates, his white suit glowing under the afternoon sun. To the crowd, it looked like a noble gesture, a groom leaving his own wedding to help the poor. Murmurs of admiration followed him. As minutes stretched on, Adana's calm began to fray. She gave a subtle, worried nod to Ngozi, her chief bridesmaid. Kunle approached the beggar, crouching slightly to meet his eyes. "Baba, let me help you," he said aloud, so all could hear. He placed a hand on the man's shoulder, gentle, almost tender. Guests sighed at the display. Cameras flashed. For a moment it seemed another story of Kunle's kindness was unfolding. But as Kunle rose, he tightened his grip and hissed into the beggar's ear, his smile fixed for the watching crowd. "You picked the wrong day to embarrass me." With a subtle nod to the guards, he pulled the beggar toward a side corridor away from prying eyes. The crowd saw only a philanthropist leading a poor man to be fed. Applause broke out. Some even clapped. The beggar stumbled along, his cup falling with a hollow clatter on the marble floor. Inside the hall, the music swelled again. Guests whispered of Kunle's generosity. Outside, the mask of kindness was beginning to crack. The side corridor was cooler, quieter, its marble floors echoing each dragged step. Music from the hall drifted faintly, muffled by thick walls. Kunle's grip on the beggar's arm tightened as he pulled him deeper into the shadows, far from the admiring eyes of guests. The beggar stumbled, wheezing, his thin frame struggling to keep up. "Food. Just food," he whispered. Kunle's smile vanished the moment they were out of sight. His face hardened, eyes cold, jaw clenched. He shoved the old man against the wall, the slap of bone on stone reverberating through the corridor. "Do you know who I am?" Kunle hissed, his voice stripped of its practiced charm. "You think you can walk into my wedding and beg like a stray dog?" The beggar winced, clutching his ribs. His eyes darted, confusion swirling with fear. "Please. Hungry." Kunle's lip curled. "Hungry? Then eat this." His fist shot forward, sinking into the man's stomach. The beggar folded with a groan, collapsing onto his knees. Kunle glanced around, adjusting his champagne tie as though nothing were out of place. No one was watching. Here he could be himself, raw, cruel, unrestrained. "You think I built this image for people like you to ruin?" he sneered, delivering a swift kick. The beggar cried out, his voice echoing off the corridor walls. Kunle froze, then leaned down, his tone lowering to a hiss. "Quiet. You'll spoil everything." The beggar pressed his cheek against the cold marble, trembling. His cracked lips opened, and a faint word escaped. "Mercy?" Kunle straightened, rolling his sleeves above his elbows. His breathing grew heavier, his polished appearance giving way to the storm boiling beneath. Years of suppressed rage, carefully hidden behind generosity and charm, surged now with merciless force. He struck again, fists raining down. Following Adana's worried glance from moments before, Ngozi and another bridesmaid slipped out of the hall, heading in the direction Kunle had gone. Their light chatter was cut short by a gasp as they rounded the corner. At the far end, the lavender-draped figures froze. Their eyes widened. Kunle, sleeves rolled, fists clenched, standing over a crumpled beggar. The music from the hall continued to play a sweet, joyous tune, but here in the shadows, violence had stolen the melody. Unable to wait any longer, Adana appeared moments later, her white veil trailing like mist behind her. Her gaze fell on the scene, her fiancé towering over a battered beggar, the bridesmaids' faces drained of color. "Kunle?" Her voice was fragile, caught between confusion and dread. For the briefest second, Kunle's mask cracked completely. Rage flashed across his features before he forced it down. He stepped forward, stretching out his hand as though inviting her into his performance. "Adana, my love, it's nothing. Just a madman causing trouble. I was—" Her eyes drifted past him to the crumpled figure on the floor. Pity and horror washed over her. She took a hesitant step closer and something clicked. Through the grime, the angle of his jaw and the set of his mouth fell into place, features she had traced with small fingers as a child. Her gaze flew to his hands, to the long, elegant fingers that once tapped slow rhythms on the dining table when he thought. Her mind reeled. It was impossible. Yet the features, though gaunt and hollowed by hardship, began to align in her memory. The high cheekbones, the set of his jaw. The world seemed to tilt. She raised a trembling hand to her mouth, a single whispered word escaping like a prayer. Papa? The bridesmaids gasped. Kunla stiffened, panic flashing across his face. He moved as if to block her view, but it was too late. Recognition, terrifying and absolute, had bloomed. Adana's veil slipped from her hair as tears blurred her vision. She staggered forward, ignoring Kunla's outstretched hand, her voice breaking into a sob. Papa! The beggar's lips trembled. For the first time in years, something more than hunger slipped out, cracked and broken. Adana! My child! Silence roared louder than drums. The groom's secret had shattered, and so had the bride's world. The word landed like thunder. Papa. The beggar blinked, his face twitching with the effort of memory, though fog clouded his mind. Yet the resemblance was undeniable. The man they thought lost to the lagoon, the man they buried in absence, lay bruised at their feet. Kunla lunged forward, his denial sharp, but still calculated. Adana, listen. He's no one. Just a filthy beggar trying to ruin us. But voices stirred behind them. Guests had followed Adana down the corridor. Murmurs rose, first in ripples, then in waves. Is that Chief Bola? It can't be. He died. No, look at his face, it's him. Adana dropped to her knees, her gown pooling around her like a fallen cloud. She cupped the beggar's face in trembling hands, tears dripping onto his weathered cheeks. Papa. It's you. I know it. I know it. The beggar's lips quivered, no other name rising to his tongue, but his eyes softened. Memory stirred faintly, enough to echo recognition. Kunla's voice grew louder, more desperate. He's an imposter. He's here to destroy us. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his mask splintering. From the crowd, Mama Titi stepped forward. Her orange and gold wrapper shimmered as her eyes filled. She raised a trembling hand to her mouth. Jesus! It's him, my brother. That's Bola. The hall erupted. Gasps became shouts, shouts became cries. Some clutched their phones tighter, capturing every detail. Others wept openly, torn between joy and shock. Adana wrenched free as Kunle tried to drag her back. Don't touch me, she shouted. Ngozi's phone tilted, red light blinking. She had captured everything. Kunle's violence, Adana's cry, Mama Titi's confirmation. With a steady breath, she pressed upload. And as the clip sped onto the internet, chaos swallowed the wedding whole. Within the hour, the clip was spreading across the internet like dry grass meeting flame. By the time Adana was helped back into the hall with her trembling father, guests' phones were already buzzing. On Twitter, hashtags began to trend. #wedding disgrace, #Kunle exposed, #Chief Bola lives. The polished image Kunle had cultivated for years was being torn apart. The live band faltered, notes stumbling into silence. Guests argued, some insisting it was a mistake, others swearing they had seen the truth with their own eyes. Some slipped away quietly, not wanting to be associated with the disgrace. Others stayed, recording every tear, every shout, eager to feed the growing fire outside. Kunle stormed back to the center, his tie loose, his face slick with sweat. Enough of this madness, he shouted louder now, his voice cracking. That man is not Bola, he is a fraud. But his words drowned under glowing screens replaying his violence. It wasn't long before another wave hit. Women began to speak up online, anonymous at first, then bold with names and faces. They told stories of the same pattern. Kunle's charm, his gifts, his promises of love, and the fists, the rage, bruises that followed. Screenshots appeared. Hospital records. By nightfall, the whispers had become a storm. Adana stood near the altar, clutching her father's hand. Clarity struck like lightning. The man she had nearly bound her life to was no savior, but a predator cloaked in charity. Ngozi leaned close, her phone buzzing nonstop. It's everywhere, she whispered. He can't hide anymore. The wedding hall, once filled with music and laughter, now echoed with shouts and hurried footsteps. Guests abandoned their seats, lace wrappers and gel sweeping past as families whispered, "We must go before our names are dragged into this scandal." Chandeliers still glimmered, but their light fell on chaos. Half-eaten plates toppled drinks, a shattered bouquet trampled under fleeing feet. Kunla stood in the center like a man drowning, his white suit stained with sweat, his tie dangling loose. His denial sharpened into rage. This is a conspiracy. They are lying. That beggar is nothing. But the more he shouted, the less anyone believed. Phones were raised high, filming his desperation. New testimonies poured online. One woman described being locked in a room for days. The hashtag #Kunla the monster climbed higher by the second. Mama Titi stood firm beside Adana. This marriage is over. My brother's daughter will not be chained to a devil. Her words cut through the noise. Applause followed, swelling as more guests echoed agreement. Kunla's mask shattered. His smile twisted into a snarl. He pointed at Adana, his voice dripping venom. You think you're free of me? Do you know how long I've waited to take what should be mine? Adana stepped forward, her veil gone, her tears replaced by steel. You will never touch me again, she said, steady despite trembling hands. Behind her, her father lifted his head. He did not speak, but his presence was enough. Security moved in. Kunla thrashed, shouting wild threats, but his strength meant nothing against the tide that had turned. Guests booed as he was dragged toward the exit, words sharper than stones. Shame on you, fraudster, beast! The grand hall, meant for his triumph, became the stage of his ruin. By the time the doors closed behind him, Kunla was no longer a groom. He was a broken man, his empire of lies reduced to ashes. The family's sitting room was quieter than the grand hall, but no less heavy with emotion. The orange glow of evening filtered through wide curtains, softening the carved wooden furniture. Where chaos had swallowed the wedding, peace now lingered, fragile but real. Chief Bola sat in a cushioned armchair, freshly bathed, his beard trimmed, his torn clothes replaced by a flowing white agbada with gold embroidery. He was clean, but he was not whole. His eyes, though clear of grime, carried a distant haze, and he flinched at the sound of a closing door. He looked around the room, touching the armrests as if they were foreign objects from a life he couldn't quite grasp. Adana knelt beside him, her blue Ankara gown hugging her frame, her veil gone, her face bare except for tear stains that glistened in the light. She held his hand tightly, as if letting go would steal him away again. Papa, she whispered, her voice trembling. You're home. You're truly home. His lips quivered, his gaze drifting past her toward the window. For a long moment he said nothing. Adana simply waited, her warmth a silent offering. Slowly his thumb brushed the back of her hand, a faint, almost imperceptible smile tugging at his lips. He turned his head, his eyes finally meeting hers. My daughter, he murmured, the words a monumental effort, cracked and fragile. Tears spilled down Adana's cheeks as she buried her face against his arm, a wave of grief and gratitude washing over her. He was here, but the man she knew was still lost somewhere in the fog of the last 5 years. Mama Titi wiped her own eyes with the edge of her wrapper. The Lord is faithful, she said softly. What we thought was gone has been restored. In the corner, Ngozi's phone buzzed nonstop. News alerts flooded the screen. Kunla's reputation was dismantled, and investigators were already moving on the women's claims. Adana lifted her head, her voice steadier now. Papa, they can never hurt us again. He cannot hurt me. Chief Bola nodded slowly, his grip on her hand a flicker of pressure. He seemed to understand, even if the memories were gone. The years of wandering and shame were over, but the road back was long. He was no longer a lost beggar. He was a father returned, a man with a second chance at healing. The room swelled with quiet relief. Outside, the city buzzed with scandal, but here, within these walls, love had reclaimed its rightful place. And as Adana leaned against her father's shoulder, her tears turned to a smile, fragile but blooming. The story of disgrace had ended. The story of healing had just begun.